Welcome everybody to our monthly climate change meeting for NWSOFA-Indivisible. We have a wonderful presenter tonight. Bridget Degnan is going to come on, and she is one of the commissioners of the Cook County. So she'll talk about that a little bit, but I just want to welcome all of you in, and then we'll have we'll have Bill Davis come back on and give a little intro about our organization. He'll come back to me, and then we'll have Bridget talk about what she wants to talk about and how climate change is affecting what the Cook County commissioners do and can do, and maybe what they want to do. So Bill, back to you momentarily.
Okay, well, I'm glad to see that Sarah Horan has joined us. Sarah, would you wave? Sarah was the driving force of this organization. She's one of the co-leads. I get a chance to work with her quite a bit, and she's been doing a lot of transit back and forth between Cincinnati, but great to see you, Sarah. So Sarah, do you want to give a few moments of the background of the organization? We'll see how close your story is to mine.
We started in 2013 as NWSOFA, Organizing for Action Northwest Suburbs, and we started out doing issues like Bill's got up here, and the team has grown. It's been incredible. We've got folks that have jumped up and taken volunteer leads for different issues that were absolutely important to them and to all of us, from healthcare to immigration, social justice, and women's rights. And it's grown and gone. Some of them have actually kind of gone away. Our equal rights group, when we got marriage equality in Illinois, that one wasn't quite as important, but it's back in the news again. But what we have is a whole group of volunteers that work on these issues, try to do as much as we can federally. That's not always possible. We found our most effective way to have impact is locally. And we've had a lot of success working with coalition groups to have impact on Illinois legislation. Really big right now as local issues with the school boards. I'm sure you're all aware of the school boards being attacked by the anti-maskers. So we're getting folks in there to support the school boards, to be able to ideally get progressive people that will guarantee that we're looking after the safety and the education of our children. So it varies. What's really hot, literally and figuratively, is climate change. So that is Mark's forte. He's got an incredible background, and I'm sure you've got other questions, but I'm going to turn it back to Mark to get the program going.
So there we go. Just a little bit about me. I worked as an environmental scientist for a company called Weston Solutions. I ended up working emergency responses on things like Katrina and the Michigan pipeline spill and Superstorm Sandy, and met a lot of really interesting people and found that it was really good work. Anyway, I've since retired, and then Bill and Sarah said, you might have come and head up this group here. And I thought about it and said, yes, I could do that. And so I've been lining up various speakers to come and talk with us and give presentations. And it's been very interesting. So that's enough about me and enough about this. So let me introduce Bridget Degnan, who is one of the commissioners of the Cook County. And I was looking up something. It said there's 17, but I don't think that's quite right. I think maybe the number's different, but Bridget, you can correct me. So anyway, without more ado, Bridget, take it away and let's hear what you have to say. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for everybody for being here. My name is Bridget Degnan. I am the Cook County Commissioner in the 12th District. You are right, Mark. There are 17 districts around Cook County, and there are 17 elected officials that represent each one of those districts. Our county board president is Tony Preckwinkle. So tonight I wanted to come out and talk to everybody about climate change and the work that I'm doing on the Cook County Board. First, I feel like a lot of people ask me frequently, what does a Cook County Commissioner do? And really the answer to that is much like your aldermen or your mayors legislate and help manage the budget. A Cook County Commissioner does the same thing. We propose and vote on legislation, and we also manage our budget annually. This year, Cook County's budget is due to be about $8 billion. So I found myself in this position in 2018, in part because my undergraduate degree is in environmental engineering. I spent 4 years in undergrad really learning a lot about chemical engineering and technology. And with that, as soon as I graduated, I went to the United States Peace Corps, and I did 2.5 years in Mali, West Africa, working on natural resource management. So a lot of that work meant stabilizing the soils there with trees, finding trees that could nitrogenate the soil, because I was living at the edge of the Sahara Desert. I constructed a lot of mud stoves and live fences, but I came back after 2.5 years, definitely a changed person, recognizing that I had privilege in the United States that many people outside of the US and developing countries, they just didn't have the privilege I had. So with a focus on the environment and my Peace Corps experience, I did environmental engineering. I was an engineer that traveled throughout the United States. A lot of the work I did was dirty work with steel-toed boots and hard hats. I did dig in halls. I dug up buried solid waste dumps. I did some brownfields work. I did the removal of leaking underground storage tanks. And after about 4 years of doing that work, I decided that personally, being an engineer was great. I felt like I was doing great work, but it is very isolating. As an engineer, I did a lot of work where I would bid a project, go out on the project, come back from the project. And I wasn't kind of getting as much work with people as I wanted. And so I went to law school. I went to Loyola and studied law for 3 years. I graduated, passed the bar, and then I started working with Lisa Madigan in her environmental bureau, filing civil claims against polluters in all counties north of I-80. So I did that for a couple years. I got a lot of litigation under my hat and really learned the ins and outs of the Illinois Environmental Protection Act. After that, I worked at a law firm for a while, and then I went back and worked at the state of Illinois, starting up the medical cannabis project. So all of that, background and knowledge and experience, public and private sector, I kind of thought, what is next? And I decided that we needed more strong people with strong science backgrounds. And particularly, I believe that we needed more women in government. So I decided to run for this office, in part because where I live, we had a good alderman. We had a strong state rep and state senator. I didn't feel like our county spot had somebody that I felt like was doing the kind of work I felt like should be done. So I ran for this spot and I won and was sworn in 2018. And I say all that because really after looking at the number of people who populate elected positions, there aren't a lot of people that have hard science backgrounds. And I think in order to really evoke real fundamental change in the climate change area, we need experts that can really talk about the effects of particulate on our lung health, or why having natural planned landscapes and gardens are better than just having green grass in front of your house because of the carbon sequestration benefits. So there's a lot of things that people with a background in science can be seen as somebody who is an expert and somebody who can be trusted on environmental matters. So I think, elections matter. I think it's important that we have more people like that in elected positions. So I will say, if you do want to visit my website, you can go to www.commissionerdegnan.com, and there's a number of tabs on there that have to do with county business. But my favorite tab is our environmental tab, It has a lot of the work that we've done in my office that I've done, but it also has an area where you can find out things that you can do for the environment, things that you can do as an individual to help mitigate the effects of climate change. And I feel like I'm talking to a lot of people, one by one, we feel very insignificant in this great climate change battle, but it's important that we each work, I think, together to reduce our impact, our carbon footprint on this planet. And so just being reminded that everybody is working together, and if we all work together, that heavy lift, that load will be lightened. So I guess if, during this conversation, if there are any questions, you can certainly put them in the chat and I'll pull it up and see your questions. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the work I've done on the county board to date, and then kind of some of the aspirational things I'd like to see happen. And then I was hoping to kind of end this out with some suggestions that you guys might have in connection with things that the county board or our friends on city councils or mayor's offices can do throughout Cook County. So the first thing I did when I got sworn in 2018 was I went around to all the major environmental organizations and talked to them about the policies they had and the things that they most wanted to do, hoping that I could help them as a county commissioner. And what I recognized is that these significant organizations had great policies already generated, but they were having trouble with the implementation phase. So I started the Cook County Environmental Commission. Now, it's not a committee on the county board, and in Chicago City Council, we already have environmental committees. This was a commission that was created by Ordinance and populated by 9 experts in the environmental field. I would chair it, and then we picked 8 other different folks that are experts in different sectors. And we selected 3 different initiatives that we would hope to get accomplished in the first few terms. So I passed that in early 2019, populated that commission, and we really started work in the end of 2019. We chose 3 initiatives. One was supposed to be a heavy lift, one was supposed to be a moderate lift, and one was supposed to be a light lift. Now, with the benefit of 2 years behind me, I realized that all 3 of them have kind of been heavy lifts, but I guess that ignorance was bliss on the front end. So one of the things we chose was industrial composting. What we realized is that there's about 20% of the food waste that we all use that goes into the landfills. That's a little bit more difficult to manage that home by home and residence by residence. What's a little easier to manage are the large scale generators of food waste. I'm talking about like the United Center. I'm talking about large weddings that have over 500 people. I'm talking about hospital systems and the jail system. Any system that has significant amount of food waste can be sent somewhere where it's turned into compost. So this isn't unique. There's other areas of the country that have been working on this. What's unique about Chicago is that you need land in order to pull this food waste into it and turn it into compost. And there aren't a sufficient number of industrial composting facilities now to really manage the food waste that would come out of a large scale generator. So if we passed a law saying, hey, all you large generators, you have to send your food waste or a certain percentage of that food waste to an industrial composting facility, there wouldn't be sufficient composting facilities. There wouldn't be enough composting facilities to take that. We started to figure out how we can draw businesses to the Chicagoland area, to the, Cook County area, with tax incentives or otherwise, to encourage these businesses to start here, and then we want them to operate here. They can't operate too far from the city because then the amount of truck exhaust that would take it from point A to point B would kind of mitigate the whole idea of diverting food waste from landfills. But at the end of the day, you want to have that compost be saleable. So the idea on the back end to make it kind of a total closed loop circle is, how do we get businesses to come and then businesses to have a saleable product? So at the end of the day, we have started trying to talk to the Illinois Department of Transportation, CDOT, and Cook County Department of Transportation to see what kind of topsoil they use in their road construction projects. Recognizing that there isn't sufficient engineering data to require compost be put underneath the road for structural purposes, but it certainly could be used for side work. So if we can get tax incentives on the front end, create some sort of place where businesses would be happy to come and set up their business, and then help create an end use for this compost, at that point, then we could legislate requiring large-scale food generators to compost their food waste. So that's something we've kind of, that whole plan came into being organically. I say that it kind of is a pun, but organically in the last 6 months. And so now we're moving hopefully into the phase where we can start implementing that. The second of our initiatives was increasing the urban tree canopy in Cook County. I think we all recognize that trees definitely benefit our air quality, but we've also recognized that when you have more trees and more vegetation, it reduces crime, and it allows people to feel, people feel better personally and emotionally. And I think during this pandemic of the last year, mental health has become a really big issue. Crime, I hear about regularly through my work and people's very specific concerns about crime, but also, you know, increasing the urban tree canopy, particularly in the south and southwest sides of the city and the suburbs, will reduce crime. There's a lot of documented studies through credible institutions, particularly the University of Washington recently did a study that found that architecturally similar public housing buildings, where one had significantly more vegetation than the second, had about a 12 to 20% decrease in crime around the public housing building that had much more vegetation. So we've been partnering with Open Lands, and our goal is to find communities that can sustain trees once they're planted. We're happy we can get the trees, we can get them in the ground with volunteers. What we're struggling to find is communities that can water and mulch the trees for the next 3 preceding years to make sure that they don't die. So that work is ongoing. We've had some success on that, and we're hoping to get to 1,000 trees planted. And then we will have reached that second initiative. Our last initiative, and what we thought would be the easiest initiative, was to change the City of Chicago's weed ordinance. So right now, basically any plant over 10 inches is considered a weed. That means all those really nice native gardens that you see in people's front yards and in the parkways are all technically illegal. What we wanted to do is create a carve out saying that if you had a planned natural landscape where you had grasses and flowers over 10 inches, that those were exempted from the weed ordinance. There was a recent amendment to the Chicago weed ordinance, which allowed a registry to be created and for residents to put their names on that registry. And then if you were on the registry, the presumption was that you had a planned natural landscape and it wasn't just an abandoned property with weeds. It kind of got us part of the way there, but I still think that there is work to do on that, because the weed ordinance as it is now still requires plants not to be larger than 10 inches. And that is obviously concerning because most planned natural landscape areas and native grasses and flowers are way over 10 inches. Plus, we love the fact that the larger the plant, the more carbon it sequesters, the more water it soaks up and helps with stormwater management, and the more oxygen it produces. So that's kind of the goals of the Cook County Environmental Commission. So before I go on to the next ordinance that I passed, I will answer Mark's question. It said, what effect does the passage of CEJA mean to your work in the county? So I worked a lot with Ann Williams in her office and a number of other activists on CEJA. You know, it took a long time. I'm really happy that it passed. But I think one of the things that we recognized about CEJA was that it did a good job, I think, reducing coal-fired power plants and their reach over a number of years. But what it meant to me really was what are we doing at the county? What can I do? I mean, I have limited authority, which, you know, can cut both ways, but why don't we have like a comprehensive environmental plan for the county? The county is the second biggest county in the country, and I feel like we need to have a comprehensive environmental plan at the county, not just for county-owned buildings and county-operated buildings. I'm talking about all buildings and businesses and new development and zoning within the county. And so aspirationally, somebody I feel like needs to take on the fact that the city does a pretty good job with identifying new developments and, you know, catch basins and stormwater capture and electric vehicle infrastructure. But the county doesn't seem to be working in that same vein. And so I think that we need a mini CEJA or a mini green plan to focus just on the county. The second question was, does the county work with the collar counties in the same ways? Not to my knowledge is the answer to that. I think the county sometimes works in its own silo and controls what it feels like it can control with its own county-owned buildings like the courthouses and the jail, or, you know, the things that we directly control. It really doesn't get into that space, but I think that it should be in that space. I think knowledge is power, and those other smaller counties around us would be very happy to collaborate with us. I think that we should be doing the heavy lifting. You know, the county is adding several hundred new positions with this year's budget, and I would like to see our Department of the Environment expanded. I'd like to see our Department of the Environment pushing out legislation that requires the county to kind of have this more green environmental plan. And then I think we need to bring in our collar county sister counties and have a plan, much like the Great Lakes region has a plan for Lake Michigan. The solar schools ordinance is something that we passed in the end of 2019, and really that was to partner with the Illinois Clean Energy Foundation to get solar panels on schools. And so really these solar panels are not to cover the entire school's roof. It was more of a learning. It's like, I think up to 1 kilowatt, but they put solar panels on the roof, and then the kids can come and learn how much energy is collected by the solar panel, and then work that into their curricula. So that was a program that we worked on. We're kind of, you know, unfortunately, I think that program, there seems to be a disconnect between getting the schools to apply for it, knowing it's out there. So promotion is really important key to getting that program expanded. You know, the Clean Energy Foundation, Illinois Clean Energy Foundation, will pay up to 90% of the cost. And then the last 10%, the school had to pay. And so I had said at Cook County, we can pay for that last 10% from money that we're collecting from the TIF fees, from the trucks going into the solid waste landfills. The county collects a very small TIF fee every time a truck goes to a landfill. We should be using some of that money to pop it back into environmental measures, especially academic ones, so kids can grow up being interested about solar energy, alternative energy, and be thinking about it when they choose to decide what to go to college for. There was, I'm going to try to answer some of these questions as they come up. So just so we don't have a time at the end. It says, is the Cook County Environmental Commission planning to promote and use the Greenest Region Compact? So I am not familiar with the Greenest Region Compact, but if it aligns with our goals, we certainly can. I know we just wrote a letter today to Governor Pritzker about the Bell Prairie up in Rockford, and about how the destruction of that prairie would be problematic. So we definitely can do more things than just the 3 initiatives that we first talked about, but I'm happy to get into that more with the Greenest Region Compact after this meeting. Renee Gladstone said, could you please say more about the green foundation you mentioned? The foundation is the Illinois Clean Energy Foundation, and that foundation does a lot of great work. I can't kind of go into their whole foundation right now, but we had a conversation with them maybe a month ago about different ways to collaborate between the county and their foundation. One of the more interesting things is that they have, I think, a lot of grant funding, and so one of the things they can do is help communities, smaller communities like smaller municipalities and counties acquire land for preservation and conservation. Much like the Cook County Forest Preserves, one of their main missions is to acquire more land for conservation. This group helps smaller groups acquire land specifically for conservation. So if you know of land that is available, I think they give grants up to $1 million. But it's very cool. I encourage you to look at the Illinois Clean Energy Foundation. Okay, so back to my list of things I was going to talk about. CPS Go Solar is a group of CPS employees and other folks interested in making sure that Chicago Public Schools does go all solar and that they're acquiring all their energy from clean energy sources. So we are trying to find funding and make sure that we are looking at all of the schools, all the CPS schools' roofs for whether or not they can sustain solar panels or different locations to in part pull in energy that's clean energy, but with that cost savings could definitely be put into pension funds. And so it's kind of, instead of spending money on energy, you're spending money on the teachers' pensions, which is, in my opinion, a better use of that money. Another thing that we've been working on is the CPACE program in the county. The city also has a program similar to this. It's the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. And that program allows for private financing. Basically, a business can identify what kind of energy savings they need, whether it's double pane windows or a better heating system. And then they can go to a private lender to get a loan. And then the loan can't be more than 25% of the building's net worth. But then that loan is basically reviewed by the county and approved by the county. And then the loan gets placed as a lien against the property, meaning that if you sell the property, you sell the property with that loan. It increases the energy efficiency of businesses, but the way that you pay it is twice a year on your property tax bill. So you don't have to pay it monthly, and you only have to pay it twice a year. And it is a very low interest loan, and it is really to encourage businesses to be responsible with their energy efficiency. It's a great program. I can't say enough about it. My only concern about that program was it seemed like there was lots of steps people had to go through in order to get the county's approval on that. I'm hoping a lot of different companies and businesses use this. So I've asked them if I could advance a change to the ordinance to require less red tape, because I think we should be getting out of the way of businesses instead of getting in the way. We shouldn't create hurdles. I think we need to take those hurdles down. So hopefully we'll be working with the Department of Economic Development to reduce some of the red tape on that. But it's a great ordinance, and I can't say enough about the CPACE program at the county. Aberdeen said, what kind of support can Cook County provide to its non-home rule municipalities that would like to become more sustainable? So if you are not a home rule municipality, I think most municipalities are home rule. Many of them are in Cook County. But if you'd like to become more sustainable and you have some sort of, if you have a leadership position or somebody that you know is in a leadership position, I really encourage you to reach out to me personally. My cell phone or my district office and my downtown office are listed on the screen. You can call my downtown office. Lori, who is my legislative director, will be there. Her number is 312-603-6380. And there's a lot, I mean, there's so much that can be done to non-home rule and home rule municipalities to support, climate change mitigation initiatives. I think, a lot of them have to do even with the way that you look at new development. I mean, new developments really need to be using, stormwater catch basins. They need to be running conduit to make sure that they have electric vehicle conduits for charging stations. There's so much that we can be doing. We could create a list. We can circulate that list and say, this is what Cook County is doing. We encourage you to do the same. But I also think that part of the ARPA funding that we're getting, each municipality over 50,000 is getting ARPA funding, the American Recovery Plan Act funding. And hopefully if the infrastructure bill goes through this year or next, there'll be more money for environmental goals. And I think prioritizing that money for environmental matters is key to mitigating climate change. And I think identifying what you want to do and how much that's going to cost is the first step. And then requesting that money from the feds. Then the feds know in advance how much money you're going to need before this infrastructure bill is passed. So I would definitely reach out to your congressman right now and say that you'd like them to know about some of the needs that you have. That way they can better advocate for you throughout the negotiation for this next infrastructure bill. The next thing I wanted to talk about was a couple more in the future things that I would like to accomplish. We had written a Styrofoam ban, a legislative initiative that we would pass throughout Cook County. Now, when we would pass a Styrofoam ban, that would basically cover all of Cook County. Now, if you are a home rule municipality, that means you could opt out of that ban, because the only thing that we can pass at the county that you can't opt out of are certain taxes and fees. To opt out of a Styrofoam ban, the municipality would have to make their own competing legislation. But I think in talking to a lot of small businesses, they recognize that it's only a matter of time before a Styrofoam ban is coming. They've already looked at how much it would cost to replace their Styrofoam materials with non-Styrofoam materials. There's actually an organization called Plastic Free Restaurants. They're out of, I think, Northern California, but I talked to the manager of that organization, and he said he will work with anybody nationwide. So basically, if you know an organization or a business that has Styrofoam cups, this business, if they replace those Styrofoam cups with paper or something not Styrofoam and not plastic, then this organization will give them the money to replace those cups. So I mean, I can't speak enough about plastic-free restaurants, how great they are. And if you know of somebody, some organization that's using them or would like to use them, then you can always give us a call and we can link you in with that person. Jeff had said, could there be incentives and promotions for area buildings to install green rooftops with vegetation? I mean, I think the incentive part is key, and it's something that I had just thought about within the last maybe month. And I had talked to our Cook County Assessor's Office to find the extent of my authority for legislation and legislating tax incentives. Now, we have a lot of tax incentives for bringing business to Cook County, tax incentives to create more jobs. What we don't have is a lot of metrics on how much our tax base is increased or benefits from those tax incentives. Why do we have no tax incentives to support climate change mitigation? Why are there no tax incentives to support green businesses? And I think those tax incentives, to the extent that they're not really going to hurt our bottom line too much and take away our ability to operate, the Cook County government, I think that there's a lot of creativity that is there for clever people to be putting incentives, tax incentives or otherwise, for things just like that. And I think where there's a will, there's a way. I will say that I am the person on the Cook County Board who really advocates the most for environmental measures, but I am only one person and I have a limited team and a limited amount of time. So if anybody listening to this call or anybody listening in later and on YouTube, you can certainly give my office a call or email me and say, I have this great idea and this is the way I'd like to build it out. And I'm always happy to partner with people with good ideas and who would like to genuinely support the environment. The next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was electric vehicle infrastructure. So I sit on the vehicle steering committee for the Forest Preserve. And one of the things that I had mentioned in the past year was that I didn't see that we had a significantly robust plan to transfer all of our vehicles over to electric vehicles. And I think just in the last year, we've seen so many more Teslas on the road, and we're going to see so much more about electric vehicles. What I don't want to happen is that we have all these electric vehicles and the county hasn't used its American Recovery Plan Act, its funding to build more charging stations, because eventually all the county courthouses and all the county-owned properties and the forest preserves are going to need charging stations. So I feel like we need to use that ARPA funding now to run the conduit and create those EV charging stations before we need them, or to encourage people to have comfort levels to buy EVs rather than be behind the 8 ball and then have to spend all of our corporate dollars, our county government funded money for that. I mean, we have the funds now. I think we need to use them now. I think we need to be environmentally responsible by switching out all of our fleet vehicles and do the research into the larger vehicles. I'm talking about our buses, our RTA and PACE buses. I get to sit on the RTA committee. I don't get to vote on the PACE suburban bus division of the RTA and the PACE. Only the suburban Cook County commissioners get to do that, and I'm a city commissioner. But I do get to sit in on those meetings. And I did sit in on the last committee meeting. And there I learned that the PACE's 5-year capital plan includes the purchase of 78 new diesel buses that they were very excited about. And they had 0 EVs in their plan. So I had said, I don't think anybody should vote for these PACE appointees if you guys don't have a capital plan that contemplates the use of electric buses. Electric buses are all over Europe. There's full municipalities along both coasts in the United States that are fully electric. There is no reason for us not to have electric buses. They don't use fossil fuel gas. They don't require oil changes, and they do not require the midlife overhaul, the costly overhaul that each one of those buses requires during their 12 years of lifespan. So if New York can commit to electric buses and California commits to all electric buses, then Cook County can too. So after that meeting, I understood that the PACE board has started an EV plan, which they said at the beginning of that meeting that they didn't think EV was there. But sometimes it's just being present. It's really challenging the appointment of people who want to be on the board, saying, I can't vote for you during this meeting, but I encourage my fellow commissioners not to vote for you if you're not going to have an EV plan that puts pressure on, the PACE suburban bus division to really get a plan together. Let me check some of these other messages. I hear the Illinois Restaurant Association is fighting all efforts to ban single-use plastics. How do we overcome this pushback from a big industry? Well, I think that is a great question, and it is multifaceted. So the Illinois Restaurant Association has a very strong lobbying arm, and I recognize that it is an additional cost. But part of the idea of an argument against, or I guess for banning single-use plastics is Number one, if I'm going to go out to dinner and have a pickup dinner or a takeout dinner, and if it costs me $30 for that to be delivered to me or for me to pick it up, and I do that once or twice a week, am I willing to pay $30.50 to not have a single-use plastic utensil? How much is it worth to the consumer to have that ban? How much is it worth to our kids to not have all of these single-use plastics? What is it worth to the environment? So there's a cost to single-use plastics. And at the end of the day, we vote on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things. You know, my last county board meeting 2 months ago, I had a 101-page agenda. I voted on hundreds of things during that one county board meeting. So if I'm voting on thousands of things annually, and that is one thing, then you have to be brave enough to say, I get it, I understand your argument, but this is too important, and you know, we can find another way. And part of it is to work with the Illinois Restaurant Association and find a way around some of their concerns. The next question is, it looks like with the infrastructure bill is funding the infrastructure bank. This is of huge importance and can be continuing funding source going forward. That was from Mark. Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right. Any thoughts on that? Or Mark, you're 100% correct. So my last thing I was gonna talk about was the comprehensive environmental green plan for Cook County. You know, I kind of popped that up and talked about that a little bit earlier, but I do think that we do have a Department of the Environment at the county. It really, like I mentioned, does focus a lot on things that the county buildings that the county owns and operates. But what I'd like to see it is that it pushes out and expands as an umbrella to cover all businesses and people within Cook County. And I think that there's a level of expectation, not just by people that are 25 and under, who the environment is their #1 issue that has been polling is the #1 issue. And some people say that people over 25 or 30 are homeowners. And so property taxes and is their #1 issue. But what we've seen over the course of the last 2 years is that there's a significant push in the Latinx population towards environmental justice in our Black population. There's a lot of a push for the youth. There's just across all genders and races, people are very concerned about climate change. And I think each elected official needs to make it a part of their platform and promise what they are going to plan to do to support the environment. And I think that's where we'll see comprehensive environmental change for the better. So that's kind of, you know, what I've been working on. I know that there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more, you know, big swaths, I feel like, of things that we can accomplish. But I also feel like electing people that make the priority, the environment their first priority, is important, and that's where we'll be able to band multiple people together to make a big push. I see a couple of extra questions. It says, hold on a second, I'm trying to. It says, can you speak to efforts to improve biking and non-automobile transportation? So Cook County and the city of Chicago has started to put more money into bike lanes and to prioritize bike lanes. And I think that, you know, that's a significant infrastructure and transportation initiative. You know, I know biking is something that we all want more people to bike, and we want more people to take more public transport, but I think people love their cars. And so I think we really need to focus on pushing out EVs and electric vehicles and supporting the infrastructure for that too. Karen had mentioned that paper containers for food with wax are not recyclable. I think that that is true for some sorting stations, but I will say that, you know, when you look at it as a balancing factor test, styrofoam will never deteriorate. It will break up, it will harden, and it will crumble, but it will literally never deteriorate. It will be here a million years from now. So I think that while paper that contains wax is not as ideal as some of the other alternatives, it's definitely better than styrofoam. And on these things, I think there's got to be a progression, I think, from styrofoam to paper or cardboard. Karen had also mentioned the source of electricity for electric vehicles. I'm not sure if you're looking at what source of electricity for electric vehicles was necessary, but I mean, obviously solar would be best, but you know, moving towards non-fossil fuel cars, I think, is the ideal. And is that it? I've been told that municipal buildings do not pay for electricity, so have no incentive to install solar. Is that correct? I don't think that that's correct, but I'm not sure. I would have to get back to Jim on that, and Lori and I can circle back with you, Jim McGrath, on municipal buildings and what they do or do not pay for electricity. But even if they don't pay for electricity, Jim, and you are correct, they're still using electricity from the grid, and the whole idea is to reduce the overall electric, you know, the load that we have from carbon fueled power plants. So the next one is we have Scott Britton as our commissioner here in the Northwest suburbs. Can we help enlist his help on your work too? Please help all commissioners help, you know, get the word out. And yes, you can definitely lobby Scott Britton. He is a Cook County commissioner. He covers a lot of area on the Northwest side, along with Kevin Morrison. And the more people you have, supporting these initiatives, the better. Karen had just said the coal-fired power plants provide electricity for cars, 40% in Illinois. That is a statistic that I cannot comment on, and I do not know that. And that is the end of my prepared comments. Mark?
Thanks, Bridget. Great stuff. So just so you know, Jim McGrath is one of our people out here. He's works with Barrington Go Green. He works with League of Women Voters doing presentations. He's working with Restore Our Democracy. He's going to the school board meetings to stand up to the bullies. He's a tiger. We love to have him out here. And there was let's see, one of our other guys is on the Palatine Cool Cities. So we've interesting people working on stuff out here, and we're and I'm glad to see that they're all in here. Mikey Swire is a big bike enthusiast, so some of his questions are that. Let's see, who is it we got? I'm just scrolling down here to see. Jeff Cressman's with Palatine Cool Cities. So we're trying to lobby the city governments into, doing, getting their act together. So sometimes we have some success. Sometimes they actually meet with us. But anyway, this is fun. Bill Davis asked if I would, he's got a question for you. Let's see, at the end of her presentation, you may want to ask if there are any candidates who want to introduce themselves. I don't know who might be on here. Also, we want to plug the November 13th. What's Bill, you don't want to come on and speak to that, the convening of and there's a veto session going on in the state legislature. Are there other ways that we can help your work? And so, Commissioner Degnan, I would hope you would reach out to us and get Lori to contact us if there are things that we can help you do. So,
Mark, I will, can I say that I have a lot of experience with environmental law and environmental engineering and talking about it and thinking about it, but I'm only one person and I'm not the smartest person in the whole world. So to the extent that you guys are working on environmental initiatives or hear about something in another county or city that's worked well by reading an article or anything, what I would personally love is for people to come with ideas to me in my office and say, Bridget, we heard about this. This seemed to have worked really well at this other location. Here's a copy of the legislation that passed there. Is there a way for this to pass in the county? And that would be like manna from heaven for me. I would love that because a lot of our heavy work is all this environmental stuff, right? But I just this past week filed a crisis intervention ordinance that took me 18 months to research and draft to try to get a crisis intervention mobile teams out in the county so that those folks are, you know, working in connection with crisis team, with mental health or behavioral health folks rather than being touched by the police. We're looking at a total ethics overhaul. I mean, and we take a week to prepare for a county board meeting, and then we're at the county board meeting for a week voting on stuff. There's a lot of operational administrative work that is, you know, built into my job. And this is my full-time job. Like I don't do legal work on the side. I don't do other stuff. This is my full job, but there's only so many hours in the day. So if you have good ideas, or even if you have mediocre ideas, bring them all to me and I'll see what I can do.
No, it's interesting. We've in one of our meetings, we talked with the legal lady lawyers from the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy. So they were doing similar stuff up there, and that was really fun to link up with them. And I'm hoping to have meetings with the Illinois, the environmental legislative action. Well, there's Environment Illinois, and there's, what is it? Illinois Environmental, I don't know. Yep. What is it, Jim?
Illinois Environmental Commission.
Yep. So a bunch of groups that we'll have come on. So we're stirring stuff up as best we can, but we want to help you, you know, where possible. So, you know, have Lori reach out to us. And Jim, did you have your hand up?
I do.
Yeah.
I live in Barrington. It's a non-home rule community. Your comment about doing home legislation or ordinances that would apply to non-home rule communities is music to my ears. Because we can't do what we want to do because we're non-home rule. So I'd like to hear what you guys are doing on that as you move forward, because I go sit in on the Barrington Environmental Commission and I keep challenging them. So if we could move something like that along, I would love to announce that at one of the meetings.
I think a styrofoam ban is really important, an important place to start, because part of that is that you don't just file a styrofoam ban without talking to the people or the businesses who have styrofoam products. And so you kind of want to do that outreach, and then you file it so that people can't come back and say, you never talked to me about this, or you've done all this stuff without bringing in, you know, the people that would be finding this difficult, want to do all that work. And then hopefully after that, for the non-home rule locations like yours, Jim, that the next thing you do, then you kind of, you know better about the way to introduce things, get it pushed through, and then the effects of it. And so that's why I think starting with the styrofoam ban, which is still elementary to so many people, would be a perfect place to start.
That's good. Anybody else have their hand up? Let's see. So Bill, what was it you were mentioning? Bill, unmute yourself and mention what you were talking about in your question.
Yeah, this was more of a plug at the very end, so that the timing is appropriate. Indivisible has over 6,500 chapters nationwide, and we joined Indivisible about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. And Illinois, as you would hope, is one of the largest areas of chapters in Chicago and throughout the entire state, we have both rural and City of Chicago, and then metro markets. On this November 13th, and this is kind of an announcement to everybody, on this November 13th, it's a Saturday, we're going to have a 4-hour convening. And those of you who don't know what a convening is, it is a meeting with a lot of excitement and a lot of expectation. We're going to be really setting up the path to 2022 on a whole series of issues, not only candidates, campaigning, and legislative issues, but also how to increase our capacity of our chapters and our capabilities of our leads, et cetera. So I know a lot of our leads have already signed up, but this is not only for the leads, it's also for our general membership and our core members. So this is a good time to really think about how we're going to prepare ourselves for 2022. And Mark, I think we can all take a good page from your book of the speakers and the quality of speakers that you have brought to us that have educated us in areas we didn't even know existed. And it's a tribute to that. So thank you very much. And I'm going to answer one question that you had asked me earlier, was what kind of a reach do we have? We always like to have a screen full of people on these meetings. We call this our studio audience. But once the video is done, we put it both on YouTube and we start presenting it as Facebook Live across the country. And we'll get up to 2,000, 2,400 people from Alaska to Florida, all across the areas that'll see portions of this and make comments. So that is the what we call that is the not the studio audience, but that is the public audience. And Bridget, you've just done an excellent job. Mark, thank you for bringing everybody together, because this is only the beginning of getting the word out about what we do here in Cook County and what our commissioners do for all of us every day. So Mark, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, so Bridget, thank you again for coming on. I really wasn't aware of what the commissioners did. And so I was really glad that Lori helped get you on for this, because it's going to help us all. And I'm also curious, when do you run for re-election? Do you want to continue? What's happening with that? What's your calendar for that?
Well, first, you guys are a really impressive group. I do a lot of speaking to a lot of neighborhood groups and try to get the message out about what Cook County commissioners do, just because I feel like, the city level, a lot of people know about, and then we have our state legislature, and a lot of people know about that. And a lot of people don't know that county government has it does a lot, right? And we have a lot of outrage, and we have a lot of really passionate people who love their work. And so sometimes that's a little bit more difficult for people to get out when so much of the press is being occupied by all the stuff that's going on at the city that's way more dramatic than the stuff going on at the county. So you guys are super engaged, all of these different, nooks and crannies of the environment. So I'm really impressed by everybody in the question. So thank you so much for letting me have a few minutes of your time tonight. So this was my first election. I literally had run in no elections for anything ever. I never even ran for student council. It was my first time doing this, but I did learn really quickly that going door to door is really important, and being yourself is really important. Being a good listener is very important. And so, over the course of the last 3 years, I've loved this job. Even when I'm nervous, and even when, things are difficult, or I'm getting beat up about something a little bit, I still really, really love it, because it's frustrating. I don't get everything I want all the time. I want to evoke change with every single day and give as much as I can and be as in service as much as I can. So I will run for one more election. I will be up for re-election. I will start passing petitions in January of this year. I will turn them in February, and I will have a primary in June. I live in a highly Democratic district, so it's very unlikely that I would have a Republican opponent for the general election in November. So for me, it's really all about the primary. You know, I've gone door to door, except for the pandemic, because I feel like people need to hear from me, and I don't want to just go door to door when I need a vote. I think that's really inauthentic. I don't like it. And so I've had a really big summer outreach campaign, and I go pretty much everywhere I'm asked. I take every meeting that I'm asked to take. And so that's kind of what I want to see from people that are representing me. And so that's what I want to give to the people I'm representing.
Well, that's really great. Let us know if there's something we can do. So, and you know, maybe hopefully we can have you on again, you know, down the road a little bit. But yeah, great.
Thank you. I'm always happy to talk about the environment too. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Anybody else have questions? Are we going to wrap it up here? I'm still, I think it was last month, we had a cleanup day with Sierra Club Northwest out in Deer Grove. And Scott Britton sent his liaison to come and talk. And Sean Caston came out and cut brush with us in Deer Grove and cut buckthorn. And it was really great, big crowd of people. And I found out that Deer Grove was the first forest preserve in the country, which still is just blowing my mind. I didn't know about the forest preserve movement, but I'm learning things about it. And that's, you know, that's Cook County. Cook County's forest preserve. Yep. So I'm still really happy to know about that, but that was fun. So maybe you come out with this. Would you come out with us sometime, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. You know, I have a 15-year-old son who will be 16 in February, and I bring him to as many outdoor events like that as I can to help cut buckthorn and all that. He's a good worker. So yeah 70,000 acres of forest preserves.
Wow. What's he going to end up doing? Any idea?
No idea. Could be anything, Mark. Yeah. Really anything.
Yeah. A curious, smart kid, probably. So fun.
Very funny too. He's very clever.
Great. Okay. If there are any more questions, let us know. Otherwise, we'll end it here.
Oh, you know, one more thing I could just say, you know, and there's not much time left, is that the Bell Bowl Prairie is, have you guys heard about this? It's a prairie, it's one of the last native prairie lands, and it covers a part of the property owned by the Chicago Rockford Airport. And so a part of that prairie, a significant part of that prairie, is supposed to be bulldozed for cargo buildings. And I think that they're planning on starting November 1st. Now, the prairie is home to an endangered species of bee. And the Illinois Department of Natural Resources went out there. I believe that they did a study, but didn't find the bee during their study. It was found by an IDNR employee after the study was completed. And I hope I'm saying that right. But the point is that that prairie land is some of the last original prairie to Illinois. And it's being completely eviscerated and destroyed, as I understand it, to put up some cargo buildings. So what I'd like to see happen is that Chicago Rockford Airport Authority Board delays the construction of these cargo buildings until there is another assessment done to confirm whether or not the destruction of that prairie will remove the habitat for a species that is endangered. And I think we all recognize, and we've all heard about what's going on with bees and pollinators and that native land. So if you can reach out to your legislators, reach out to the governor's office, and even reach out to the Airport Authority Board for the Chicago Rockford Airport. Literally, there's like 3 days left in this. I only learned about it a few days ago. But if you can make phone calls or write letters, I think that would be helpful. I can't say that it will delay it, but not sending those letters, not making those phone calls is certainly not going to be helpful.
I have been seeing things coming out about that. And for those of you that don't know, Illinois is called the prairie state, but there's not much of our natural prairie left because it was all plowed up. So those places where there are those remnants are important to protect. And we should be making more of them if possible. So maybe there's a brownfield where the cargo shed could go. But anyway, yeah. Anybody else? Somebody was saying something. But, Bill, do you want to wrap it up or are we done? Bill is still on. I don't see him. Maybe he took a break or we'll just wrap it up here, I guess. But Commissioner Degnan, thank you so much for coming on and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Excellent.
everybody.
Thank you.